Hey leaders, thanks for checking this video out. It's our desire to help you quickly understand some of the important issues that you are going to be looking at as you go into your weekly discussions on Flourish. And so you've made it to week 4 in the subject of unity. Now, let's be honest with one another. We have a problem as a church. In fact, you have a problem as a life group. You might be wondering, well, what is that problem? The problem is that you as a life group and we as a church, we're full of people. People make things messy. And the reality is that where you find relationships, you're going to find conflict at different times. And so you might have seen this in a church situation or in a life group situation. But the reason those things happen is because both places are made up of sinful men and women. And so due to that, we must be people, we must be disciples that pursue unity and understand that unity is hard work. It just doesn't come naturally. Now, you and I aren't always going to get along with one another. There's going to be times that we might not agree with one another or look at scripture through the same lens. We might struggle with that. You might include then the ways that you raise kids different than somebody else, or how you handle money is different than other people. And a variety of issues and topics can bring about disunity. Now, let's not even mention political subjects. So we find ourselves in a time where there is disunity, and unity is really hard to come by. So we're going to find that our opinions and our wills that we have often become things that we pursue ahead of unity in the church. And so we have to see that unity in the church is a biblical command that we are to follow. So as leaders, I want you to remember that in this discussion as disciples of Jesus, that we're going to look different, we're going to sound different, we're going to come from different preferences and experiences, and yet we're still called to lead others into unity. And so the way that you bring all these different things together is to remember that our foundation is God's grace. So as you enter this time together, as you discuss this subject of unity, I want you to think about 2 questions. The first is this: is God's grace more important to you than your opinion being accepted? Is God's grace more important to you than your opinion being accepted? And the second question that I think we need to look at as leaders is, how is your view of other disciples changed by worshiping God and God alone? When you go to worship, how is that changing the way that you see other disciples? Now, let's be leaders who always come into things and discussions from the foundation of grace. And when we look at that, we're going to see that unity is possible. So as you enter this discussion here, I want to give you just a couple tips as you start to talk to the people that you have in your group. The first thing is this: you're going to find that on page 51 of the Flourish book, you're going to see that we look at Ephesians 4, 1 through 16. You're going to spend time personally reading through that. But I want to encourage you to take time to read that scripture out loud. Maybe have each person in the circle read a verse and go to the next person. And after you read it, I want you to start with the simple question of, what stands out to you about unity from this text? And just start there, see kind of what people are saying. And then what I would do is I would focus on questions 3 and 4 from the first day. Those 3 questions will get you talking quite a bit. Now, here's what you need to remember as you do that. That if someone answers something that might be a little questionable, that you need to ask a follow-up question of, Where do you see that in Ephesians 4? The reason for this is because often when we start talking about unity, our opinions want to come in, and we want to base this off of Scripture. Unity can only be found in the foundation of Scripture. So make sure you ask those follow-up questions. The second piece is that you need to look at day 2. Day 2 starts with this thought that there's a lot of options that we have in our society. And so I want you to be careful to protect the discussion time that you're having. You are protectors of this as the leaders of your group. And the reason I want you to protect is because often when we start looking at things, we can start judging others, and you might even have people in your group that start judging others by name, inside or outside your group, on the options that they've taken with church and with unity. And so we want to focus on how we as individuals and as a life group can pursue unity and not what other people are doing wrong. So in order to focus on ourselves, I want to encourage you to look at questions 1 and 2 from day 2 and see what it is that your life group is finding and thinking through. So discuss questions 1 and 2. Now the third thing is just like what you did in Ephesians 4, I would have the group read John 17 verses 20 through 26 and then Acts 2, 42 through 47. Do it out loud. We want to read Scripture out loud, so have your group do that. And then ask the people again, what do you see in this text? What's jumping out to you? And then gather their thoughts from the 3 points that are made on pages 61 and 62. You'll find those in your book. You'll have dialogue with them yourself, but see what people are saying with that. And then I would jump to the bottom of page 62 and see what did people write when they were writing down some of their own thoughts from that page. And then I would only deal with one of the questions from that last day. I think that's going to fill your discussion time. So I hope you understand kind of the flow of this as we want to pursue unity. I also want to recommend something to you. Unity is vitally important for God's church. And it's often a subject that we don't spend a lot of time on. So if you personally or if your group would like to dive a little more into this subject of unity, I would encourage you to read Francis Chan's book titled Until Unity. It's a great read, it's a fast read, but it's something that will take you deeper into why this is so important for you as a disciple, for your group, and for the church. And as always, if you feel like you have some questions, feel free to reach out. Shoot me an email and let me know how can I help you as you are kind of wrestling through this curriculum and looking at what's happening. As always, if you look at the info section down below this video, you're going to see a downloadable link where you're going to find all the questions from the week on one single page. So download that. That will help you lead your discussion in the days ahead. And know this, I'm praying for you as you dive into this great subject of unity in the church. Thanks for leading. See you next week for week 5.